Max Thompson awoke with a start, blinking against the harsh glare of fluorescent lights overhead. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled his nostrils, and he groaned, rubbing his temples. He had the vague impression of being pampered, perhaps undergoing some radical spa treatment gone awry. He squinted around the room, taking in the strange array of medical instruments that looked more suitable for a horror movie than a day of relaxation. "Great," he muttered, his voice hoarse, "what kind of high-end wellness retreat is this?" As his vision cleared, the absurdity of his situation hit him. He was strapped to a cold metal table, surrounded by people in white coats who looked less like wellness gurus and more like mad scientists. Panic surged through him as he noticed the large, ominous sign on the wall that read, "Cutter's Laboratory, where we cut to the core." Just then, a voice piped up from somewhere off to his right. "Did someone say, core? Because I've got a razor-sharp opinion on that." Max turned his head and saw a man in oversized glasses and a plaid lab coat, holding a scalpel with exaggerated enthusiasm. "Welcome to the Cutter's game. I'm Dr. Felix Fumble, and you're our newest contestant." Max blinked, trying to process this bizarre introduction. "Contestant? Like a game show? Do I win a car?" Dr. Fumble chuckled, though it sounded slightly unhinged. "Not quite. But if you survive, you might just win your freedom." Max's heart raced. "Wait, survive? What do you mean survive?" Before Dr. Fumble could answer, another figure burst into the room, a woman with wild, dark hair and a mischievous grin. "You're in for a wild ride, Max. I'm Lila. And trust me, you don't want to end up on the wrong side of a Cutter experiment." Max stared at her, momentarily distracted by her bravado. "Cutter experiment? I thought this was a spa." "Oh, it's a spa, all right. A spa for the soul." Lila laughed, but there was an edge to her humor that made Max uneasy. "Only instead of relaxing massages, you get thrilling challenges that test your very humanity." "What are you saying? This isn't an all-inclusive resort?" Max tried to keep his tone light, but dread clawed at his insides. "Sadly, no. We don't do complimentary mimosas or fluffy robes. Just a lot of cutting-edge experiments." Max gulped, looking around the room at the gleaming instruments and the manic expressions of the cutters. Okay, let's just say I believe you. What's the first challenge?" Dr. Fumble stepped forward, rubbing his hands together in glee. "Ah, that's the spirit. Our first game is a test of wit and guts. You'll face a series of challenges designed to push your limits. If you fail, well, let's just say we'll have to get creative with our culling process." "Culling? Like in farming?" Max blurted out, his mind racing. "Listen, I have a thing about farming. Couldn't we just, I don't know, play Monopoly instead?" "Monopoly?" Lila shot him a disbelieving look. "This is no game of property and rent, buddy. This is survival. And if we don't outsmart these wackos, we might end up as their next experiment." "Right. Survival." Max nodded, trying to inject a sense of confidence into his voice. "So what's the first challenge? I mean, I can totally handle whatever you throw at me." Lila raised an eyebrow, an amused smirk playing on her lips. "Okay, Mr. Tough Guy. Let's see if you can handle the trivia terror." "What's that? Is it like a game show?" "Sort of, but the stakes are much higher. You answer questions correctly, you live. Answer wrong, and, well, let's just say the consequences are skin deep. Max felt a chill run down his spine. Skin deep? That sounds ominous. Trust me, you don't want to find out, Lila said, her expression serious for a moment. Then she shrugged and added with a wink, but hey, at least we'll have a blast along the way. The cutters guided Max and Lila into a large, brightly lit arena filled with bizarre props and ominous signs. An enormous digital scoreboard flashed ominously overhead, displaying the words, "Welcome to the Trivia Terror. Let the games begin. Doesn't this look fun?" Lila said with an exaggerated grin, striking a pose as if for a photo op. Max chuckled despite himself. "Sure, if you're into existential dread and the threat of imminent dismemberment." "Exactly," she replied, her laughter infectious. The first question flashed on the scoreboard: what is the only mammal capable of true flight? Max stared at it, his mind racing. Bat? I mean, that's a gimme, right?" The scoreboard flashed green and cheered. "Correct. Move to the next challenge." "See?" Lila nudged him, "You're doing great. Just keep that brain sharp." With each passing question, the absurdity of the game heightened. They found themselves answering everything from the capital of Mongolia to the color of the infamous yellow brick road. The cutters watched with gleeful anticipation, taking notes as if they were conducting an experiment in human psychology. Suddenly, a particularly tricky question appeared: what is the chemical symbol for the element gold? Max hesitated, his confidence wavering. G? Or is it O? Wait, why do I know this? Go with your gut. Lila urged. You can do it. Okay. Oh. The scoreboard erupted in confetti and cheerful music. Correct. Max advances to the next round. As the challenges continued, Max felt an odd sense of camaraderie with Lila. Their banter turned the tension into laughter, and soon they were trading jokes and witty comebacks even as the stakes grew higher. Finally, they reached the last question of the round, which loomed ominously on the board: which planet in our solar system is known for its rings? Seriously? Max scoffed. That's too easy. It's Saturn. The scoreboard responded with a resounding cheer, but a quick glance at Dr. Fumble's face revealed that things were about to get serious. Congratulations, he announced, a glint of mania in his eyes. You've made it through the trivia round. But now, it's time for the ultimate test. The real game begins now. Max's stomach dropped. Wait, what do you mean? Dr. Fumble pointed dramatically to a massive door at the end of the room, labeled the cutting room. Next up, you'll face our physical challenge. Are you ready? Max swallowed hard, glancing at Lila. Ready as I'll ever be. With that, they stepped through the door, not knowing the true horrors and hilarities that awaited them on the other side. Max and Lila stepped through the imposing door into the cutting room, their hearts pounding. The room was dimly lit, with an array of bizarre contraptions and ominous machines lining the walls, all designed for the most absurd physical challenges imaginable. In the center stood a towering structure resembling a twisted carnival ride, half obstacle course, half torture device. Welcome to the cutting room. Dr. Fumble's voice echoed through the space. Here, you'll face a series of physical trials that will test your strength, agility, and ability to maintain your sanity under pressure. Max glanced at Lila, who was surveying the setup with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. You know, I've always wanted to try skydiving, but this feels a little more intense, he quipped, trying to lighten the mood. Lila grinned. If you survive this, you might just earn a free skydiving lesson. Great. Just what I need, falling from the sky while questioning my life choices. Dr. Fumble clapped his hands together, interrupting their banter. Are you ready for your first challenge? It's called the Gauntlet of Glee. You'll navigate through a series of hurdles while answering ridiculous questions. Failure to answer correctly means you have to face a consequence. Consequence? Max repeated, his stomach tightening. Don't worry. It's all in good fun. Dr. Fumble replied, his grin wide enough to be unsettling. Just remember, the more you fail, the more colorful the consequences will be. Lila rolled her eyes, muttering under her breath, colorful. Great. Just what I need, permanent body art for my mistakes. The gauntlet began, and the first obstacle was a massive foam pit filled with vibrant, bouncing balls. Max dove in, the balls flying everywhere. This is like a kid's birthday party gone horribly wrong, he yelled, trying to keep his footing. Just answer the question. Lila shouted from across the pit. A loudspeaker blared, Question 1, what is the capital of Australia? Easy. Max shouted back, bouncing around. Canberra. Correct. Now get out of there. With newfound energy, he scrambled out of the pit and raced toward the next obstacle, a series of swinging inflatable hammers. Lila was already halfway through, ducking and weaving with impressive agility. Max followed her lead, timing his movements with exaggerated flair. Who knew I'd be so good at dodging inflatable death? Just don't get cocky. Lila shouted, narrowly avoiding a swinging hammer. Max managed to slip through unscathed, and they moved to the next challenge, a towering wall with handholds that looked far too slippery. Lila began her ascent, but the wall was more treacherous than it appeared. This is like climbing a giant cake, she exclaimed, her feet slipping momentarily before she regained her grip. Max laughed. And I'm on a diet. Can't let the cake win. He started climbing too, and together they reached the top, panting but exhilarated. Now what? He asked, looking at the drop on the other side. Now we jump. Lila grinned, and without waiting for a response, she leaped down into a pit filled with fluffy pillows. Okay, coming in hot. Max shouted, following suit. He landed with a soft thud, and for a brief moment, they both lay there, laughing and gasping for breath, but the laughter was short-lived as a new challenge awaited them, the maze of mayhem. Walls of bright colors twisted and turned in chaotic patterns. You'll need to find the exit while answering 3 trivia questions hidden within, Dr. Fumble announced, rubbing his hands together with glee. Fail, and there will be consequences, they both chorused, rolling their eyes. All right. Let's do this. Lila said, determination flashing in her eyes. They dashed into the maze, and the colorful walls seemed to close in around them. As they navigated the confusing paths, they found the first question emblazoned on the wall. What animal is known as the king of the jungle? Lion. Max shouted confidently, correct. Keep moving. They pushed deeper into the maze, adrenaline pumping. The next question appeared just as they rounded a corner. What is the largest mammal in the world? Blue whale. Lila yelled as they sprinted past. Right again. One more to go. They were nearly to the exit when a loud alarm blared, and walls began to shift. What the? Max exclaimed as the maze transformed around them. Just keep going. Lila urged. They raced through the twisting passages, the walls closing in like a scene from a horror movie. Finally, they reached the last question. What is the boiling point of water? 100 degrees Celsius? Max stammered, panicking. Correct. Now go, go, go. They bolted toward the exit just as the walls threatened to close in completely. With one last burst of speed, they leapt through the opening, tumbling out onto a soft mat outside the maze. Did we make it? Max gasped, sprawled out on the ground. Looks like we did. Lila laughed, catching her breath. Dr. Fumble clapped from a distance. Impressive. You've survived the gauntlet of glee and the maze of mayhem. But there's one final challenge, the cutter's last stand. Sounds ominous, Max said, trying to suppress a shiver. The final arena was an expansive space with towering obstacles and various contraptions that looked like they belonged in a medieval torture chamber. Here, you'll face our most creative tests of strength and intellect, Dr. Fumble said, a glint of madness in his eyes. Max and Lila exchanged nervous glances. What do we have to do? Lila asked, her voice steady but her expression betraying her apprehension. Prepare for the ultimate test of bravery, the Claw of Doom. Dr. Fumble announced, gesturing dramatically to a massive mechanical claw hovering ominously above a small platform. Max stared at it, bewildered. The Claw of Doom? Is that supposed to scare me? It sounds like a ride at a bad amusement park. Exactly. Lila said, her grin returning. Let's show this place what we're made of. The claw lowered ominously, and the rules were explained. They had to answer questions while dodging the claw, which would attempt to grab them. If it gets you, you'll face the consequence, Dr. Fumble said, his tone dripping with enthusiasm. Max took a deep breath. Okay, I've faced weirder things today. Let's do this. The first question flashed before them. What is the smallest planet in our solar system? Mercury. Lila shouted, and the claw hesitated, retracting for a moment. Next. Dr. Fumble urged, and Max readied himself. What is the freezing point of water? 0 degrees Celsius, he replied. The claw lurched again, swinging toward them, but they dodged in unison. The tension was mounting, but Max felt an exhilarating rush. This is insane, he yelled, laughing despite the danger. Just stay sharp. Lila called as the next question appeared. What is the chemical formula for table salt? NaCl. Max shouted triumphantly, feeling the adrenaline surge as the claw whirred overhead. Final question. Dr. Fumble exclaimed, his excitement palpable. What is the powerhouse of the cell? Max paused for just a moment, the weight of the challenge pressing down on him. Mitochondria. The claw twitched again, but they had made it through. It swung wildly, but they danced out of its reach, laughing hysterically at the absurdity of it all. Congratulations. Dr. Fumble bellowed, his enthusiasm reaching a fever pitch. You've completed the cutter's last stand. Lila and Max collapsed onto the mat, breathless but exhilarated. Did we actually do it? Lila laughed, disbelief washing over her. We did. I can't believe we survived that. Max replied, grinning widely. Suddenly, the door at the back of the arena opened, revealing a brightly lit hallway. Now, for your reward, freedom. Dr. Fumble announced, almost disappointedly. You've outsmarted the cutters and completed the challenges. Max and Lila exchanged incredulous glances, a mix of relief and joy flooding through them. They stood up, brushing themselves off, and headed toward the exit, laughter echoing in the hallway. As they walked, Lila turned to Max. You know, this was actually kind of fun. I mean, for a life-or-death experience. Right? I can see the headlines now: average guy and badass woman survive absurd torture games. Exactly. We could start a podcast about it. Lila laughed, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I can already picture the first episode: how to avoid claws of doom and live to tell the tale. Max grinned. I'd totally subscribe. They stepped out into the sunlight, blinking against the brightness. It felt like a new beginning, the chaos of the Cutter's game behind them. They shared a smile, realizing they had not just survived but had forged an unexpected bond through their wild adventure. Ready to take on the world? Lila asked, her voice teasing yet sincere. Absolutely. Max replied, a sense of determination swelling within him. Just no more claw machines, okay? Deal. Lila laughed. Now, let's find some food. I think we've earned it after all that craziness. As they walked away from the lab, the absurdity of their day washed over them like a wave. They had faced the Cutter's game and come out alive, and as they headed into the world, they knew this was just the beginning of their wild, unpredictable journey together, and who knew? Perhaps they'd end up in even crazier adventures ahead. But for now, they were free, and ready for whatever came next.